Welcome to DCS, and today I decided to make sort of a cooking book on how to set up a typical Soviet air defense for 1980s sort of scenario. The defensive line sort of will be this river all the way through somewhere there. It runs off. We'll see about that. I'll start from the coast. First we'll set up some sort of ground vehicles and tanks. Of course we want some kind of a USSR. Can we have? No. Let's see. Russia. Armor D72B. Place a command tank in here. And a whole company. Can I thought for a moment that I could select an entire group. Well, turns out I can't. So let's just go with this and place them manually. Excuse me. And if you over, yes, over here in a tree line, and the last three should go let's say in here, defending from this position. So we're defending this bridge with a company of T-72s. We'll get something similar set up in here. Can just go copy these, place them here. Move the command tank in here. These guys will be watching from this forest over here. And this trio will be watching the road from over here. And just for a good measure, we might place a reserve company. Let's say around here. So these guys are just waiting for their orders in case something bad happens and they would need to move in. And last would be another tank, which will be the battalion commander. And that is a D-72 battalion. That's 31 tanks. And they're just holding up this little portion of the imaginary front line. Of course, I could go ahead and place some more here. I'll use something else. Let's say BMP2. It will be just a platoon of those. One here and say another one here. Same over here. Actually, let's say that they have already crossed the river. It would be somewhat out here. Oh, alright. Yeah. And that should sort of serve us as a kind of a framework that we can go off of. It's really I'm trying to focus this on the actual air defenses that would be set up for Red 4. And this kind of like only serves to simulate some sort of ground forces so that we have an idea of where they are and what are these air defenses protecting. So let's get to it. A typical defense for a tank company would be a Shilka or a Biryuza. So let's get a Shilka. Sit down over here. A bit more in the open. That is the command vehicle of the battery. I will place down 4 Shilkas. One going over here to spread out the fire a bit. One going over here, protecting these 3. One going over here, possible another one. Maybe I will just pair them up like this, and maybe not even put them onto the front line directly. Rather put them a bit more behind, like this. And yep. Going to put them in here instead, so that they are. You know what? I'll put a pair in here, and another pair over here. Like this, so that they are protecting the entire front line of the tank battalion. Now, of course, there is going to be troops that are connected to this battalion up to let's say a brigade or not company, a regiment, up to a regimental strength, somewhere into the depth. So while we have the short range air defenses here, which are adjacent to the armor, we might add something to mix it up, and the air-to-air unit that would usually be connected to these would be sort of an igla. Or yeah, this is still a one. Let's place it. Here. Because again, this is a vehicle. It is not protected by any armor, so you do not want to place them directly on the front line, sort of behind. Let's have 4 of these, mix them with Shilka. They sort of serve as a picket line for helicopters. Fourth one, between the Shilkas, and 3, 4. Let's say in here. So we're covering a line now. And this is just for a company of tanks. Now, of course, we will need something to cover our reserves, which would be somewhere here. You can see that we have the tank company reserve here. We have a rail yard and something which looks like a factory or storage. So we might want to invest into something a bit more longer ranged in here, which would be a battery of an OSA. Let's see. We'll put one in here. OSA battery usually consists of 4 vehicles. Might have a vehicle here, vehicle here, and a vehicle here. Alright. And the OSA again protects a bit bigger area, but it's still a short defense anti-air system. Might add another battery over here to cover the rest of the reserves. And OSA. I have a suspicion that I have been placing BMP2s. Yeah, alright, let's fix this. So we want an OSA battery The inherent advantage of OSA is that each of these vehicles can attack its own target, which we will later see that there are vehicles which have sort of a weakness that the entire battery has to be attacking a single target. But it does have its logic. Let's see. Not OSA. Here we wanted the Shilka. Yeah. A Shilka. Another Shilka and another Shilka. Right. This one, even though this originally was supposed to be the Shilka, but let's turn this into a Strela. 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 And another Strela. Right. So as you can see, now that we have actual AA units in here, the AA coverage has increased by a lot. It is very dense and it covers a large area. Of course, here we don't have any kind of short-range air defense, but that's because this is a sort of let's call it a low-value air defense. There are better units that were around in 1980s. This is the very basic stuff. Let's spread this out a bit, maybe like this. So this is basically what the export would be, the export units. Basically Warsaw Pact and stuff, not really Soviet Union. The Soviet Union at this point moved to a bit better units. Let's see. The biggest tactical air defense that you could expect would be a Kub battery. So let's place it down. And Kub battery needs a command vehicle, which actually let's spice it up a bit. We will first have a command vehicle like this one. We also want it somewhere where there is not much in the way of possible launches. So let's put it somewhere here. Is a command vehicle which serves as a sort of a radio vehicle. And now let's place the actual AA vehicle, which will be a search and track radar, and then 4 launchers. The radar would usually be behind them. It would be best even to put it onto sort of a hill. We can make them sort of staggered a bit so that it doesn't look sterile. There we go. We have a Kub battery, and you can see that it actually covers a very large area, especially if it's search radar. And its actual attack radius is about the same as the search radius of an OSA battery. So there would be one such battery, and we might even place another one if we wanted to in say here, but we won't. This will be enough. Now we can move to sort of man pads. So this is the tactical air defense that would be on such a tiny portion of a map. Of course, there will be infantry everywhere, so infantry, soldier. Let's place it here. Let's put another guy in here, and this one will be Igla Commander and Igla Manpad. And we have our Igla team. Well, they're not important here because we have all of the vehicle-based AA units. Here we don't have any, so we place it down. Okay, this. Might even put him into this sort of gap. Right, and actually, never mind. Let's put another one in here. Ah, that actually fits. There we go. Now let's place some more modern tactical air defense around here. Which of course we will start with a bit more high value armor. So let's place a single TDU company. Yeah, this tree line would be good. Ah, fuck. TDU. Is the command vehicle, so let's put him a bit into the rear. Another 3 around here. And then perhaps 3 more in here. Now what could be protecting such a high value target? Well, first again let's start with some gun AA. Of course, we won't be relying on a Shilka anymore. There we go, 8 Tunguska will do. 4 of these. Put one in here, one in here, one in here, and possibly around here, bit more remote. Actually, might even split them a bit and put 2 to cover these guys. Now the analog to the OSA would be a Tor. There we go, Tor. And again, a battery of 4 launchers. Put them around here. Again, you might usually see 1 at a time, but that's because such a battery could be split up and you could have 2 covering this part and 2 possibly parked up here and covering this part, and then they would be called a half or a semi-battery. There we go. Even though usually you wouldn't find them this much deep in with trees around, so maybe it wouldn't hurt putting them all the way back in here. There, and we have spread out their fields of fire. Now, of course, their access route is from via a detour, possibly from here, which is where their reinforcements would be. So let's give them some kind of protection. Also, we'll be protecting the front units as well. But it's the multi-layer air defense for you. It serves many purposes as well. In any case, the rear air defense would be consisting of a book. So we'll place the command vehicle. The search radar, which is for finding targets only. And then the launchers, again 4 of them. They each have their own tracking radar. There we go. Let's spread them out a bit. And again, it is covering a large area. So this battery here is covering the short range entire batteries in here. And now we will move to something more interesting. So now that we have covered the front line, we will cover the airfields. The usual Cold War airfield air defense consists of 2 batteries of OSA. One at each end of the runway. So let's put 4 of these. Ah, damn it. Usually in a wedge formation of sorts. Put it here. Okay. And another one around here. There we go. That's an airfield or airbase air defense. Nothing much more fancy is needed. Usually you wouldn't see an airbase defended by a Buk or Kub or even S-300. The reason is simple. A Kub, where did I put it? Here, is designed to attack a single target at a time. It has only one attack radar. With an OSA, each vehicle has its own attack radar, so in theory this airbase can simultaneously fend off attacks from 8 different planes. Now on the right side, I will do something similar, just in this case we will be using the more modern units, so a Tor it is. Of course, you can use a Shilka somewhere in the mix, but this is the base. Air defense for an airbase. So we will place these. And just because we're feeling fancy, we will add a Tunguska. Actually 2. Just to help fending off possible seed attacks. So that's 1 battery. And there we go. Another battery. 3, 4. And a pair of Tunguskas. And as you can see, this is already an extremely dense air defense. And that's sort of the thing that people forget when speaking about the Soviet air doctrines and stuff. They only focus on how sort of mediocre or bad the actual airplanes were, but they forget that this is where they operate in friendly and especially an extremely heavy air defense environment. That's what they were designed to do. They were not really supposed to venture off into enemy territory, although they could. But at that point they would have also friendly early warning radars and all sorts of support, and each such attack would be planned, and they would mainly hope, or like their main tactic would be not getting intercepted at all, so they would make a swift attack in and get out before the enemy can actually scramble their fighters. Now, while this is nice, there's a few units that we have kind of forgotten, and that is the strategic air defense. So where does that play into this? Of course, they are not for defense of the airfields. I can actually copy these and here, just like this. I won't even bother turning them around. And in good data, one battery here, one battery here. Okay, so let's do this. So you see this open space right here. There's nothing in there, although the actual supply lines run through there, so you might want to have it covered, and that is where a strategic air defense comes into play. I'll start with the most basic one, which I can place here. Place it more around here. This looks like a good spot. The first one that I will show off is the SA2 or Volkhov, as we can tell by the SM90 launcher. This is the latest S75 model, and what we need first is this should sort of go with an OSA battery, to be honest. I might add them in. In any case, we will need some sort of early warning radar. This one is usually what you would see in 1980s as a search radar. Next vehicle after the search radar would be the actual tracking radar for an SA2. That's this fancy thing. We'll place it slightly apart. Why? The usual pattern for the SA2 would be sort of a hexagon with 6 launchers. Now, of course, such a battery might feel a bit vulnerable. So we might add a short-range air defense Shilka battery, just to sort of make it harder for enemy planes trying to approach this. Now this would be more of a 1960s and early 70s battery, although the SA2 was still used in 1980s quite wildly. As we can see, it's not all that impressive. Its range is very limited. Its search radius is kind of neat. But don't let yourself be fooled by this large ring. Usually it would only engage at like half of the range, and it would still miss a lot of the shots. A lot more appropriate, especially for Russians, air defense would be the SA3, which we will start with the same search radar at the tracking radar. Damn it. I need to remember to press the edit button. Yes, and the launchers. Usually just follow these in sort of a semicircular. Come on. There we go. This one might seem to have slightly shorter range, which I'm very much confused about. But it's still, it performs better than an SA2 when it comes to actually intercepting targets. Now if you want to really deny the enemy access to your units for something of very high importance, let's place it in Krasnodar if it's not loading. Of course, again, you would have OSAs or TORs defending the actual air bases, but since Krasnodar is such an important and big city, a lot of logistics running through it, of course. Here might be a good place, maybe potentially here. Yeah, let's do it here. The biggest and baddest Soviet air defense unit is the S-300, also known as SA-10. We will need a command point. We will need one search radar. Second search radar. You can see that there is actual difference between these two. One of them is for basically searching over tall buildings. The other one is sort of a better system. It doesn't see it doesn't see the low flying targets. So you might want to combine those. Then we will have a tracking radar. Let's move it closer to the road. And then we will have the launchers. Two types of launchers, that's these and these. They basically only differ by the loaded missile. And we have 4 launchers for the SA-10. If you're feeling really ballsy, you might do an expanded battery, or you might do a simple trick of putting down 2 batteries in a similar location. Say in here. And as you can see, they are protecting an extremely large area of Krasnodar. And this is sort of the layered air defense that the Soviets or later Russians would be using. So we have seen the sort of from manpads through short-range air defenses with Shilkas and OSAs. Actually, Shilkas and still as OSAs come at a later stage when we're defending a little bit more into the depth. Then we have the Kubs. Analogically to it, we have Tunguskas, Tors, and Buks. All of these trios working together. We have OSAs for air-based defenses, or in case of this one, we have the Tors and Tunguskas. Then we have the strategic air defenses filling out the gaps, or defending high-value targets, as in strategic targets. One thing that I forgot to do, while S-300 battery will try to protect itself from anti-radiation missiles, it's not entirely effective at it, so you might want to add some kind of short-range air defense system. Very good for this is a Tor, which has been specifically designed to defeat incoming cruise missiles, which a Han, for example, would kind of be like. At least when it comes to defeating a target, it's very similar to defeating a cruise missile. And if you place a Tor in the same group as the S-300, the Tor will actually protect the S-300 from incoming anti-radiation missiles. And that would be it. I hope that you liked this sort of a cooking book. I hope you found it useful and it set a block in your head, as we say. I will see you in another one.